Hi everybody, thanks for joining the webinar. My name is Dave Rockamora. I'm a solutions architect at Amazon Web Services. I'm very excited to talk to you today about some of the stuff that you can do on AWS with some of our tools and some of the tools from Sumo Logic, a partner. We're joined by Kellyanne from Sumo Logic and Mark from Scripps, who's going to talk about what they're doing. So to get started here, let's set the stage with a couple of statistics. It's estimated that by the year 2020, every single human on the planet will be generating 1.7 megabytes of data a second. So for anyone that wants to do the math, that's a significant amount of data being created by all of us here on planet Earth. At the same time, one way to measure how the big data market is growing and how the tooling to manage this kind of data is growing would be to take a look at the Hadoop market. And so it's forecasted that that's growing at a 58% compound annual growth rate and surpassing $1 billion by the year 2020. So, so people in the industry is building a lot of tools to be able to process and analyze and understand this sort of massive amount of data that we're all going to be creating together. Yeah, but that said, even with all this data being generated and all these tools, being built to process it, it's sort of estimated that, of all of the data that's ever created, only 0.5% is being is ever being analyzed or used. So there's a huge opportunity for organizations to capture some data and analyze it and build some meaningful things from the data that they're collecting, which presents a pretty interesting opportunity for all kinds of organizations. So organizations that are able to capture that kind of data and do something with it will win. They'll have some advantages. They'll be able to do more interesting things for their customers. So here's an example of some AWS customers that are doing interesting things with big data and finding ways to capture and analyze and understand that and build value from the data that they collect. One example here might be FINRA, which is analyzing financial market data to detect fraud and understand what's going on in markets. Another example could be Netflix, who collects statistics and information about not only things like streaming quality and technical information about how customers are viewing content on Netflix, but also to understand engagement so that they can better build content and understand how to build content that's really going to engage and delight their customers. Or another one that I find to be pretty interesting would be Major League Baseball Advanced Media, who built a platform called StatsCast, which combines a bunch of sensors in baseball stadiums to track and understand what's going on in a baseball game in real time, allowing their customers and their viewers to be able to say, well, what would the game outcome be different if this person had ran just a little bit faster, or if this person had been safe here instead of out? So it's a pretty interesting way to use some data to do some really neat things. So for these customers, and really for anybody, why choose AWS for big data? Well, there's a couple of reasons. So the first reason is that it's immediately available. If you want to start building a system like this, or working with large amounts of data, you can get started right away. There's no need to build a data center and fill it with computers and things like that. Anybody can sign up with AWS and get started right away. AWS also has a large amount of a lot of capabilities that are both broad and deep. So by broad, I mean services that can do things like event-driven computing or on-demand computing, data storage, databases, machine learning, sort of all over the map. But then in each one of those categories, we go quite deep. So in the compute space, that might mean not just having one or two kinds of compute types, but having computers that have special features like a significant amount of memory or high-performance specialized CPUs or GPUs for doing certain kinds of data processing and analytics. These kinds of capabilities are available so that you can pick and choose the exact right system to solve the kinds of problems that your organization needs to solve. Next, AWS is trusted and secure. So security is really is the first job, it's job zero here at AWS. Everything that we do has security baked into it. So that means that customers that can choose to use AWS for their most sensitive workloads and trust that they're sort of managed and maintained. AWS has a number of certifications for running regulated workloads, like things that might need to be a HIPAA compliant or PCI compliant. AWS carries SOC 1, 2, and 3 certifications and many more, making it suitable for all kinds of workloads. And finally, AWS is quite scalable. You might be starting out today with just a couple of gigabytes or terabytes of data and a few machines, and maybe be growing to petabytes of data and thousands of machines. And you know that AWS will be there with you to scale with you and to support any size of workload that you need to run. So to sort of dig a little bit closer into some of the services that make sense for big data, there's a significant amount of services on top of AWS, and these are just a few that I wanted to highlight here to talk about, because they make sense for big data processing. So when it comes to getting your data to collect it, we have a number of options there. AWS Import and Export and the AWS Snowball, the Import-Export Snowball, are two pretty interesting capabilities that allows you to ship physical devices. And in the case of Snowball, we'll mail you this device that can store up to 80 terabytes of data, and you can fill it up and mail it back to us to be able to quickly ingest data into AWS for processing or storage. You can also use these services to get data out. So after you've completed your processing, if you want to take the data set out to do something else in your own data center or whatever, you can use these services to get the data out. We also have a lot of services for storing that information, inside of AWS. So there's something like Amazon S3, the simple storage service, which is a great choice for storing, immediately accessible data. We also have EMR, Elastic MapReduce, which does Hadoop, and you can run HDFS in there if you choose to store your data in that way. And additionally, we have other kind of classes of storage for different kinds of things. Glacier is an example of a very low-cost way to store archival data for a long time. We also have, through our database offerings, a lot of sort of indexed online data stores like Redshift, DynamoDB, and Aurora. So if you want to store data but also be able to query it and access it, those are some options for you there too. So once you have all this data that you've collected and stored on Amazon, on AWS, you might want to be able to analyze it, obviously. So we have services like Kinesis and Lambda for doing stream processing and real-time eventing on the data that you're working with inside of AWS, as well as Elastic MapReduce, which can run things like Hadoop or Spark or other sort of batch computing workloads or real-time data analytics tools to be able to scrape and divide and understand your data in all different ways. And if that's not going to be a fit for you, we also have EC2, and we have a lot of customers that are running all kinds of software just on EC2. EC2 is the Elastic Compute Cloud. It allows you to create virtual machines that run really any kind of software that makes sense for you. So those are the options. So those are some of the options that you have when it comes to working with data on AWS. So really, AWS provides all of these building blocks that customers can put together to solve all kinds of problems and do all kinds of interesting stuff with data. And you're going to hear some more from Sumo Logic and Scripps about some of the stuff that they're doing. But just to give you an idea of what some other customers are doing, we have customers that are storing big data repositories like a data lake on S3 and analyzing that with a bunch of different tools. We have customers doing things like clickstream analysis in real time, maybe with that Kinesis and Lambda sort of combination. And we really virtually have customers doing all kinds of really any kind of use case here. Some interesting stuff coming around with machine learning, with our machine learning service, which has been interesting to see how customers are using that. As well as just customers that have traditional off-the-shelf BI applications that they've been using for years and years. They run really well on AWS and integrate really well with our services. So we're seeing customers do some pretty exciting stuff there. So to get an understanding of maybe sort of a deeper understanding of a specific use case, I'm going to turn it over to Kellyanne here from Sumo Logic, who's going to talk about machine data analytics with Sumo Logic and AWS.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate the excellent introduction into big data analytics. In the next session here, we're going to talk about a specific use case of big data, in particular how big data can be used to manage applications and infrastructures better. Again, my name is Kalyan Ramanathan. I'm the VP of Product Marketing here at Sumo Logic. And for the folks on the call who don't know who Sumo Logic is, we are a AWS-based SaaS service. And we provide machine data analytics capabilities that helps our customers manage the operations and security of their mission-critical applications and infrastructures. Now, I know some of you may ask, what is machine data? So machine data happens to be logs, metrics, events. And these are the data points that are generated by your applications and infrastructures today. Sumo Logic knows how to ingest this data. It has a world-class an analytics offering built on top of AWS, and all of this ends up providing exceptional insights into your applications and your infrastructures. But before we get into the details of the problem that Sumo Logic addresses, let me just give you a quick introduction into the company itself. So the company is 7 years into the making. We have over 1,200 customers today. I'm sure many of you can recognize the brands that we have on the slide here: Twitter, Airbnb, Adobe, Delta Airlines, JetBlue, etc. And many of these customers use Sumo Logic to manage the performance as well as security of their customer-facing mission-critical applications. Our service is based on AWS, so as Dave mentioned, you get the instant-on capability with our service. But our service also is a very scalable offering. Today we ingest petabytes of data on a daily basis. We can do millions of transactions and searches and queries on our data. And so we are leveraging the power of AWS to provide a very high-scale service to our end customers. And then lastly, Sumo Logic is funded by tier 1 investors. Some of these investors, I'm sure you guys know, based on some other great companies that they have funded in the past. So let's start out by talking about the problem that Sumo Logic seeks to address. So as many folks on this call, I'm sure, can attest to, right? Enterprises of today are building modern applications on modern infrastructures. And when we talk to our customers, right, what we hear from them often is that there are 3 characteristics to these modern applications. First and foremost, these modern applications are typically built on platforms like AWS. AWS and other cloud vendors today offer state-of-the-art infrastructure and services. They offer great SLAs, for applications running on this platform. So it's no wonder that enterprises are choosing to build their applications on cloud technologies like AWS. Secondly, we're seeing the rapid adoption of DevOps and Agile-style methodologies. And what that essentially means is that applications can now be built faster. They can be released faster, and changes happen more often within applications. Lastly, what we're also seeing is the growth in componentized architecture. So essentially, what microservices allows you to do is to compose applications from a lot of modular components. And while this is great for building applications, it also makes the application very much more complex. So how is IT managing applications in this new world where applications have become very complex, where change is the norm for IT applications today? As many of us can I'm sure agree to, it's not very well. And the fundamental problem here is that IT teams today are using many tools to manage the performance as well as the security of their application. You have cloud management systems, you have infrastructure management tools, you got app monitoring and management tools, you got some ad hoc tools, you got some log analytics tools. The problem is that many of these tools are siloed, i.e. they don't integrate well to each other. 2, they're not optimized for the modern cloud app. So these tools don't understand what an AWS service is all about. They don't understand and recognize Docker as a modern infrastructure. They perhaps don't understand and manage MongoDB or Redis database, which are the next generation modern applications. And then these tools are also not capable of managing a fast-changing application where applications change all the time, and dynamism is the name of the game. So the challenge that many of our customers express is that, one, they struggle to get an end-to-end understanding of their application. An application all the way from the application components, the app servers, the web servers, the database servers, to the infrastructure that the application is deployed on, to perhaps the third-party services that the application may be using. 2, many of our customers tell us that it is very hard to manage the performance of the application itself. it's very hard to manage the performance to SLAs, and when things break down, and when you have to fix the problem, see the MTTR, mean time to problem resolution, is measured in hours, or for that matter, even days today. And then lastly, we also hear from customers that the security of their application is not what it should be. Right? There are many breaches in terms of the application security, some that customers know and some that they don't even know and only find out after the fact. So how do you solve this problem today, right? How do you manage applications more effectively? We at Sumo Logic believe that there is a better way to manage these applications, and that comes by leveraging the power of machine data analytics. As I mentioned before, applications of today are generating lots of machine data, logs, metrics, events, etc. Now, if you can build a real-time analytics platform that starts out by providing, one, a unified view into all this machine data, logs, metrics, and events. Two, can analyze and correlate all of this machine data in real time. So when you see a trend in metrics, you can easily see the correlation to what's happening in the log world, and then you can see events that are being generated by the application at the same time. And then three, if you can do all of this in a very scalable and an elastic way, because as we all know, the amount of machine data that is being generated by applications is increasing in orders of magnitude year over year. Only when you do all of this, right, can you get real-time insights into your application. You can understand your application well, you can understand the performance and the operations of the application, and then three, you can understand the security state and status of your application, right? And that is essentially what Sumo Logic provides, right? So what Sumo Logic provides is a cloud-native SaaS hosted solution that provides complete visibility into all the machine data that is generated by your applications and infrastructures. The Sumo Logic service leverages the power of the cloud. As Dave mentioned, AWS gives you infinite scale, infinite capacity, infinite elasticity. So we leverage the power of AWS cloud to manage and to crunch through all the machine data that is ingested by the Sumo Logic service. Two, we provide native support for all the machine data elements. So we understand logs and metrics and events in their native form, and that that helps us manage and process this data exceptionally in an exceptionally efficient and in an exceptionally performant way. Thirdly, we have a lot of machine learning capabilities in our solution that allows us to analyze this data effectively, to spot anomalies as well as trends in this data, which then helps us to build, run, and secure applications that are running either in the cloud or in a hybrid environment. So how does Sumo Logic actually work, right? As I mentioned before, Sumo Logic is a SaaS service. So we take care of managing the service. You as our customer don't need to worry about setting up the service and managing the service. What we need to do to make Sumo Logic effective in your environment is to collect the machine data that is being produced by your applications and your infrastructure. You can do this using a locally hosted collector, or you can use our cloud-based API to post the data to the Sumo Logic service. Once the data is in the Sumo Logic system, we index the data, and from that point on, you can start to analyze the data. You can run searches on it, you can run queries on the data, you can create dashboards with this data, similar to what you see on the screen here. It's a one-click drag and drop to create dashboards of this kind. You can also set up monitors and alerts whereby you can get proactively identified when an anomaly in this data is detected. Now you might ask, what kind of applications and infrastructure does Sumo Logic support? Right, so we support over 50 applications out of the box. And we have listed some of these applications as well as services and infrastructures in the slide here. So the applications that are supported out of the box by Sumo Logic know how to ingest and interpret the data from those particular applications or infrastructures. So as a good example, our Nginx app knows how to collect data from an Nginx web server. It knows how to interpret the logs as well as events, and it knows how to analyze this data. So too goes for our Docker app, or for that matter, our AWS S3 app, right? So our system, our apps and our system understand how to interpret the data. We also have a lot of out-of-the-box analytics capabilities. These analytics capabilities allow you to instantly identify anomalies in the data and also detect trends within your data. And then finally, we also provide many out-of-the-box dashboards. Customers of ours struggle with trying to understand the key KPIs from many of their applications and infrastructure. Sumo Logic has done the job for you. You don't have to know the details of your applications and infrastructure. We will provide all of that out of the box with our applications. Now, what do we support from a AWS point of view? We obviously run on AWS, but we also support many AWS services out of the box. Again, we have out-of-the-box apps for very many AWS services as highlighted and listed in this slide here. Our AWS apps automatically collect operational and security data from many of these AWS services. So as an example, if you're using AWS CloudFront, which happens to be a CDN, a content delivery network within the AWS world, we will automatically collect the performance data, the user data, the usage data that is being serviced by this CDN service. If you choose to use AWS CloudTrail, which is a security service being offered by AWS, we will automatically collect data from CloudTrail and we will provide you complete visibility into who is accessing your service, who is making changes to your configurations, and when, and are they authorized to do so, using our AWS CloudTrail app. So as you can see, armed with this data, you can very quickly and very effectively manage your AWS applications, its performance and its operations and its security, way more effectively than in any other way. So let's talk about advanced analytics that is provided out of the box with Sumo Logic. As I mentioned before, we collect a lot of data, and so the question obviously is, how do you start to analyze this data and get to the needle in a haystack in terms of all the data that is presented to Sumo Logic? So Sumo Logic provides several machine learning capabilities, and these one-click offerings allow you to very quickly troubleshoot and identify root cause of issues within your application or infrastructure. Let me start out by log reduce and log compare, and these are two critical capabilities in the Sumo Logic platform, and what they essentially provide is the ability to identify patterns and compare patterns across environments, or for that matter, even across timelines within your application or infrastructure. The value of this capability is that now you can instantly identify application performance changes or application security changes as, let's say, new versions of applications are being rolled out, or as you're moving from, let's say, on-prem environment to a cloud environment. Now you can very quickly identify anomalies in logs and events and be able to quickly correlate those anomalies to certain other events that may be happening within your environment. Sumo Logic also provides an outlier detection capability, which essentially identifies anomalies based on dynamic thresholds. Again, the value here is that you get proactively alerted whenever you see a change or a trend in your logs and metrics. Finally, we also provide a predictive analytics capability, which allows you to predict future trends based on past data. If you're looking at capacity planning for your applications or for your infrastructures, predictive analytics can help you get there. I want to spend the last few slides here talking about the platform of Sumo Logic. Right? So as I mentioned before, Sumo Logic is built on the AWS cloud platform. It's a SaaS-based service. Our platform manages everything for you. Right? We set it up, we scale it, we optimize it, we upgrade it. Every time there is a new release of Sumo Logic, you as a customer have to bear no cost in order to manage the Sumo Logic platform. You also get guaranteed performance SLAs from the Sumo Logic platform. So you can ensure and you're guaranteed that your Sumo Logic data analytics platform is always up and running. We've also thought about security as a first-class capability within this platform. The Sumo Logic platform is highly secure. We have PCI and HIPAA certifications built into the platform. We encrypt all data, whether it is at rest or in transit within the Sumo Logic platform. Security is not an afterthought for the Sumo Logic platform, and you can be rest assured that we have built a very robust, very scalable, and a very secure platform that you can use for all your machine data analytics needs. I want to end with this slide and highlight to you guys the key reasons why you should think of Sumo Logic when you're thinking about machine data analytics. First and foremost, Sumo Logic Machine Data Analytics Platform provides a unified view into all machine data, whether it be logs, metrics, or events. And this allows you to not only consume the data, but also correlate and analyze this data way more effectively than you can ever do in any other platform. Two, the platform is built on AWS. It provides all the capabilities that you expect of a SaaS service on AWS. Instant on, scalability, fast time to value, and low total cost of ownership. The solution also has a lot of machine learning capabilities built into it. Our out-of-the-box machine learning capabilities allows you to very quickly identify the needle in the haystack so that you can identify problems quicker, so that you can troubleshoot these problems and get to the root cause and fix issues as soon as you see them. Lastly, the platform is highly secure. And anyone who is thinking of going to the cloud today thinks about security. And Sumo Logic has built security from the get-go into its machine data analytics solution. And with that said, I want to turn this conversation over to John Kelly from Scripps. John is a customer of ours, and he will speak to how Scripps successfully migrated to AWS, and more importantly, how Sumo Logic helped them in this journey. John?
Thank you, Kalyan. This is Mark Kelly. I'm the Director of Cloud and Infrastructure Architecture for Scripps Networks. And when I say Scripps Networks out in the wild, it normally doesn't garner a lot of attention. But when people get a first look at our logos, everybody goes, oh, that's who that is. And we are a leading developer of engaging lifestyle and content for home, food, and travel categories for television, digital, mobile, publishing. Our lifestyle media portfolio composes popular television and internet brands, HGTV, DIY Network, Food Network, Cooking Channel, Travel Channel, and Great American Country, which collectively we engage more than 190 million U.S. consumers each month on these linear networks. In addition to this, our digital properties associated with these brands engage over 70 million visitors a day. Outside the U.S., Scripps Networks Interactive owns TVN, which is Poland's premier multi-platform media company, and has an independent commercial joint venture with UK TV and the BBC Worldwide. In addition to those entities, we distribute 7 entertainment brands: Asian Food Channel, Cooking Channel, DIY Network, Fine Living, Food Network, HGTV, and Travel Channel in 29 languages, reaching nearly 165 million households in more than 175 countries and territories. Our desire is to influence and inspire. Our desire to influence and inspire extends beyond the media to include strong community and business relationships. Through our corporate social responsibility and social diversity and inclusion efforts, we are committed to making a positive difference with those who come into contact each and every day. We are located in Knoxville, Tennessee, but we have offices in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Dallas, Washington, Atlanta, and Detroit, with some international offices in London and Singapore. So a little bit about our history. We began our cloud journey about 4 years ago. It was actually, now that I look at the calendar, it was actually closer to 5 years ago at this time. And at that time, we had several issues we were trying to solve. We needed to be able to serve the business needs faster. Most of our development teams are running agile development methodologies, and they run iterations really fast and don't know what they need until the last minute. So as that, delivering infrastructure was potentially a time-consuming task. Had to deal with issues such as no hardware ordered in advance of the projects, had to deal with time to stack the hardware, time to configure the systems, and then time to actually turn it over to these development teams when they needed them. So this resulted in a very laborious task that didn't really fit the needs of the business. So what did we do? We, being the cloud services team, decided to be the evangelists for the cloud. we went around preaching to the whole organization that the cloud was the future, automation is where it's at. Time to market would be greatly beneficial to everyone if we went with the cloud. Finally, we got some buy-in from our digital customers, and they were on board with the concept for us to try it out. We picked one of our digital properties and worked with that business unit and development team, and off we went. When we successfully migrated our first apps to AWS, we had developed lots of automation. During our first forte, we were doing things, with the first available service. You can think 5 years ago, the AWS platform was quite a bit smaller than it is today. They release services on a daily basis, it seems like to me. But, our initial offering, we leveraged services like Beanstalk and a lot of shell scripts for automation. Since then, we've matured quite a bit, and we actually leverage more advanced configuration management techniques such as CloudFormation and Chef. On this journey, while we were doing this, we were getting lots of publicity around the company. Lots of other business units started to notice what we were doing. And they noticed that success, and they actually wanted to start adopting it as well. So with that, we started migrating all of our digital properties. And to date, we currently have every digital property that we own is hosted in AWS. That's hgtv.com, Food Network, DIY, Cooking Channel, Great American Country, and Food.com. Food.com is actually the only one that isn't associated with a linear broadcast. That one is mainly made up of user-generated content. And like I said earlier, between all of these, we do get over 70 million visitors per day, which equates to about 6 petabytes of data served out to our end customers through these sites. Our next effort is to move our media and content delivery applications into the cloud. Our media and content delivery, mainly their process is to manage all of our media assets and deliver it to our partners out in the wherever they may be. I'm talking about Netflix, Hulu, Comcast, Charter, Time Warner, Apple, and even Amazon. And the big challenge with them is that every provider wants a different format. So we're constantly having to transcode, reword, redupe the audio, do something to that media to make it fit to somebody's format that they need. So what was our challenges with moving to the cloud? We had massive amounts of data. You can think about it. If we look at all of our logs and application data that's being generated, we're running between an average of 350 and 500 gigabytes of data a day. During spikes, and I'll talk about spikes in a little while, those spikes drive us up to 750 to even a terabyte of data per day. So how do you manage this? In our on-premise world, we would manage it by people actually logging into individual instances, checking out the logs, trying to find stuff, reading those log files, and it resulted in really slow debugging efforts, when you're talking about big application stacks. We did have some pockets of centralized logging, but nothing standard across the board. As a result, debugging was very slow and painful. Downtime sometimes was quite long. Another challenge we had is that there was no easy way to audit. Security needed to know who was doing what and when they were doing it. We wanted to be able to enable everyone to do what they needed when they needed it, but we also wanted to make sure that they were doing what they were doing correctly and to the correct procedures. The spikes you see at the end of that slide, I'm talking about, if you heard of a little thing called Dream Home, where everybody wants to win that $1 million house every year. Unfortunately, I'm kind of excluded for that to my wife's chagrin, so I try not to pay attention to it as much, but that drives our traffic up by huge amounts every year. HGTV.com will average 25 million plus users per day whenever that sweepstakes is going on. Spikes. Another big time of year for us is Thanksgiving. As you can imagine, everybody wants to make great meals around Thanksgiving, and they come to our properties for some of those great ideas. Food Network will average 20 to 25 million users a day on just it alone. Then Cooking Channel and Food.com are averaging in the tens of millions of users per day. So between those, we're averaging close to 50 million users per day during those spikes. So you can imagine trying to serve that type of user base on a daily basis can be very challenging. So what did we need? We needed an aggregated solution for looking at the massive amounts of data that we were generating, preferably not a solution that we had to manage ourselves. Mainly we were thinking SaaS. We did not want to stand up a bunch of infrastructure that we would have to assign a whole team to manage just because of the size of the data that we were talking about. That solution also needed to be able to grow and scale with us. Think about those spikes. It needs to be able to handle those spikes and not miss a beat during them. It needed to have those auditing capabilities. Can it monitor AWS's CloudTrail for us to tell us who's doing what type of API activity is going on, monitor the application and infrastructure performance details. All these things needed to be looked at. And what we came up with was a general cloud platform built around many tools that we provide to the various development teams around our organization. So in this cloud platform, it mainly consists of 5 pillars. First, we have the global infrastructure, and in that's where our basic infrastructure is offered to people. That's where we design our basic designs around how our VPCs look, how networking looks, what our file transfer standards are, what the content delivery looks like, what are the transcoding standards for media in the cloud, disaster recovery, how does that look, and one of my favorites, automation, and then monitoring. Security is also a major focus point for us because it has become a big buzzword in the industry over the last couple of years, and with all the breaches that have been occurring, you can understand why it's become such a big point for everybody out there. Ops data management is kind of the focus of this webinar. I'll wait, I've got a little more inclusive slide about that one, but mainly that's concerned with optimization, cost reports, utilization reports, anything around analyzing data that we've got there. Automation, it's a holy grail of the cloud in my mind. That's where you get your biggest benefits. We actually have a focus in our platform around that, to help with the configuration management, help with containers, DB automation, any type of automation that goes on, provisioning of infrastructure, that's all covered in there. And then we also have business continuity to help protect the data and make sure it's available when the business needs it. So our cloud platform that we came up with kind of looks like this. And it's mainly comprised of 4 groups. We've got our cloud consulting, cloud engineering, cloud automation, and cloud support services all down that left side. Then under each of those categories, we kind of support, or that's kind of the services that they provide under that consulting. They're doing your education and planning for the developers. They're doing the integration architecture design for everything that they need to get going in the cloud. And then we're giving them guidance and best practices as well. Cloud engineering ends up being our people with their feet on the ground. They're the ones that do the implementation for most of these teams and actually become the subject matter expert for most of the services that we leverage. Cloud automation is built into that. This is how we actually control everything. Like I said, automation is our holy grail and controls everything from standing up infrastructure to deployment of code. And then as another part of this platform, we stood up a 24/7 operations center that basically supports all these sites. We had that before, but this one we've expanded and actually has a lot more capabilities and it's a little more streamlined than what we had before. And then you can see down below the supported platforms we ended up with. Most of what we use today is some of those tools. You'll see AWS is our primary cloud provider. We do dabble a little bit in other clouds, but not very much right now. And then our automation solutions are mainly based around Jenkins, Bitbucket, Jira, and Chef. And then you can see some of our application solutions and then the whole suite of monitoring tools that we've been leveraging in the cloud. So when we talk about data management, we have these massive amounts of data out there. How is that valuable to our customers or to the business? These customers are coming to us with legal and compliance challenges. They need to make some transparency out of their data. They need to present it to somebody. They need some real-time feedback out of that data. They need to generate some custom reports, visualize some trending out of that data, and make some informed decisions and help them plan for the future as well. So as one of our tiers, we developed this data management service in our cloud platform that helps the customers actually provide these analytics, provide the dashboards for them, provides optimization, cost reports, all of these features you see down the right side, so we can help them get what they need and get it when they need it, and we get it to them fairly quickly. So, why Sumo Logic? One of our biggest challenges was operational support and developing monitoring solutions for everything in the cloud. We went through an extensive evaluation of products initially and came up with a standard suite of applications. When we first, well, why Sumo Logic is because when we first started our cloud journey, we were looking for partners that were also looking to prove themselves in the cloud world. We wanted partners that made our lives easier as well. Think SaaS. We're thinking software as a service. That's the easiest way. If we can get somebody to do it, we don't have to manage hardware. We just use the service. We talked about it earlier, but managing log data is a cumbersome task by itself. When you have hundreds of thousands of hundreds of gigabytes per day of log data, trying to find one problem can be very similar to the proverbial needle in a haystack scenario. You can waste a whole lot of time trying to find it. We made the decision to have one solution that could aggregate everything for us. We needed it to be centralized, globally searchable, help us with debugging, troubleshooting, and with auditing. We needed it to be able to parse those common log formats and actually parse custom application logs. It needed to be able to recognize those custom formats from our log files. We needed it to be able to provide some dashboards and reports, show what's going on with real time with our data, be able to develop some trends from that, do some auditing. We wanted to be able to see what was going on in CloudTrail, give us some dashboards from CloudTrail. And to another point, we're also leveraging it for local storage on-premise as well now. We've actually expanded it to where we're monitoring a local array we have here on-premise, where we've had some issues with some of the media files we have on there disappearing or being moved accidentally by some user. They had no way to track that. So this array, we installed Sumo Logic tracking on it. That all the log files where we're tracking the deletes, the writes, the reads, the moves, and the updates. So all that's been pushed into Sumo Logic, and we're doing a lot of analytics on it and generating some dashboards. So we see in real time what's going on with it. Anytime anybody or anything accidentally moves some of those files or deletes them, we've got tracking on and can figure out what we need to do and undo it very quickly. So what about the future? We're always looking for the next big thing. The future will have all logs going into one solution across the board, cloud and on-premise. Cybersecurity is always a big push for us. We've got multiple tools you'll see right here. Carbon Black, QRadar, and several others, and they're all wanting the same data. We want to be able to get to that, reduce that duplication of effort and get them to one common source of centralized store that can process all of the data and keep us from having to duplicate sending it to the multiple ones. Another big push, more automation. Like I said earlier, with the cloud, automation is the key to everything. It makes your lives much easier, and if you think about it, there's nothing quite like being woken up at 2 a.m. and having to troubleshoot an application stack. If you got your automation right, it takes care of itself. Normally, it makes those occasions of being woken up at 2 a.m. much, much less frequent. And with that, I am going to conclude and turn it over for questions. Dave, is it back to you?
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Mark. That was really pretty interesting to hear about your cloud journey. So I'm here I'll do some moderation of some questions. So I think now if you'll see there'll be some survey questions popping up on the screen there to ask about how you like the webinar today. We'd encourage you to fill those out. We definitely use that feedback to build better webinar content in the future too. So looking forward to seeing some feedback there. And if you have any questions, now would be a great time to put them in the Q&A pod. We'll try to get through as many as we can here in the next couple minutes. So first question actually for Kellyanne about Sumo Logic. We have some people asking, how is Sumo Logic delivered? I think you got into this a little bit, but is Sumo Logic a PaaS or a SaaS? How can customers get their hands on that?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dave. Yeah, as I mentioned before, Sumo Logic is a SaaS service. It is completely built on AWS. It's a cloud-native service, and you as a customer, need to, just sign up for Sumo Logic, and you can pretty much be off and running with the solution itself. We do need to ingest your data, your application, and your infrastructure data. And as I mentioned in one of my slides, we have a notion of what we call collectors, and collectors are essentially agents. They can be either locally hosted, or we have a cloud API through which you can send us your data, and then you can start to see your data within the Sumo Logic system. And at that point, you can slice and dice this data, you can apply a machine learning, you can analyze it, you can create dashboards, and so on and so forth. So Sumo Logic is a SaaS platform available via AWS, and if you want to sign up for the service, it's available at www.sumologic.com.
Cool. And then I think just to piggyback onto that for you, Kellyanne, there's some questions about, and Mark, you had mentioned this too, but so customers can use Sumo Logic to send data. You can send data to Sumo Logic from things running in AWS, but also from on-premise things. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Obviously the state of the world and the state of IT is such that there are many customers who are, in their cloud migration journey. They still have, infrastructures and applications running within their data centers. And some of them are being migrated to AWS. So we definitely support hybrid environments as well as cloud-based environments.
And would you say, Kellyanne, would that include things like maybe out of the ordinary, like a mainframe or something like that? Could you connect mainframe data into Sumo Logic?
We don't have an out-of-the-box app for mainframe, but it might be, but ingesting this data and exporting it to Sumo Logic, as long as that can be accomplished through a utility that may be running within a data center, we can still slice and dice this data. Having said that, I do want to make maybe a subtle point. I mean, Sumo Logic's core focus is on modern applications. That includes, applications running on AWS and other similar clouds. So we focus on those applications, and that's where we will be investing a lot of our time and effort and investments.
Cool, great. All right, yeah. So everyone, please keep your questions coming in, and I'll see if we can get as many answered as we can. So here's one for Mark. The story that you told was really a lot about an AWS migration over 4 years. Who within Scripps was managing the transition? Was it the DevOps team or the centralized IT team? How did you guys manage that migration?
Most of this was managed through the DevOps methodology. Everything we've tried to do, it's been a combination of us centralized here in our cloud services department, working with the development teams and even the business, as much leveraging that DevOps methodology as much as possible to make it happen.
Cool. And then here's another question that I wanted to ask to you, Mark. Someone had asked this. Can you give us an example of some of the business metrics that you're collecting and servicing through Sumo Logic? Is there any, do you have any anecdotes about maybe some metric that you guys surfaced through Sumo Logic that became really useful for your organization or the business around you?
Well, there's been a lot of metrics that we collect through the various tools. I mean, this one, the most useful I can think of, the most useful metric has been around a lot of uptime around the websites. We've been able to track that through dashboards, a lot of missing files, we've been able to generate more metrics than we had before. We can actually use this data to come up with metrics that drive what we need to do. We didn't have that capability before, so we've actually been able to generate metrics, whether it's around if a file was deleted or how long a website has been up without having an incident. All of that has been generated and developed since we've been our journey to AWS and Sumo Logic.
And Dave, if I can just add to that, Mark reflected on a few metrics that Scripps is obviously collecting using Sumo Logic. But we have many customers who are also using Sumo Logic, not just for their operational and security insights, but also for getting business insights about their applications. So and examples of these KPIs could be who is using my application? Now, where are they using this application from? What geography? What devices? What is the trend of usage for my application? Is it going up? Is it going down over time? And is that normal, right? So there are many customers who are definitely tiptoeing into business use cases, given that applications of today already have a lot of business context. You don't need yet another BI tool to perhaps slice and dice this data. A tool like Sumo Logic can definitely serve that need. We don't position ourselves as a BI offering. Having said that, we can provide you the basic business intelligence need that you can get from within the application itself.
Cool. And I have a question here that I can answer real quick. Some people are asking about the slides in the recording. So there will be an email coming out in the next couple of days that will have a link to the slide deck and a recording of this webinar if you want to follow up offline. Another question for you, Kellyanne, about there's a couple people asking questions here about the Sumo Logic retention policies. How long will data be stored in Sumo Logic, and how available is that to customers over time?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very flexible retention policies, and this is one of those differentiators that we have over, let's say, even the basic AWS monitoring and logging capabilities. Customers of ours use this for security use cases, for compliance use cases, where by default the expectation is that logs and metrics are at least held or retained for a year, or if not even more. So we have some customers who choose to who've chosen to retain their data with us for many years. Obviously, this is a customizable configuration within Sumo Logic, and the more we retain data, obviously the costs for the customers also go up some bits. But having said that, we can definitely adapt and support any kind of retention policies that a customer needs.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll just remind everybody, if you have questions, keep coming them in. We'll try to answer as many as we can here. I kind of have a question for both Mark and for Kellyanne, because about Sumo Logic and migrations. Mark, did you find that having Sumo Logic in your toolkit helped Scripps migrate to AWS faster or easier? And Kellyanne, I'd also like to hear about how customers are using Sumo Logic as part of their migration strategies into AWS.
I will say that our migration to AWS was much easier by the tools we selected. We made the cloud platform and tool selection beforehand, so we didn't have that centralized logging solution or aggregation and analytics capability for any of our log files beforehand. So once we got it in place, it made life much easier for us.
Yeah, and I'll add to what Mark just said, right? I mean, I think there are three ways by which we help our customers, migrate to the cloud more effectively. First and foremost, with Sumo Logic, obviously, since we can, we support both on-prem as well as cloud-based environments. You can baseline your application and your service, and its operations, its performance, its security, etc. Pre-migration, right? And then you can also do the same post-migration, and you can now very quickly assess to see if your application, right, indeed works the same or perhaps even better as you're doing this migration, which is, I think, one of the key goals of an application migration to begin with. Two, since Sumo Logic is built for modern apps and cloud-based apps, we understand the cloud infrastructure exceptionally well. I think in my slide I talked about the AWS services that we support out of the box. So any customer of Sumo Logic will be able to use those services, and will be able to get insights into those services. Thirdly, we can provide, again, performance and security insights as you migrate your application to the cloud. The same tool that you use to manage your applications in your data center now manages your application in the cloud just as effectively, which means that there is you're reducing your risk as you are migrating the application to the cloud, and you're also improving the time to market as you move this application to the cloud.
Great, cool. Yeah, keep those questions coming in, everybody. I have another question for you, Kellyanne, and you mentioned CloudTrail a couple times. I guess two-part question, really. What is there like do you support CloudWatch and other AWS services in Sumo Logic? And then also, are customers using Sumo Logic for security, information and event management in their environments?
Yeah, I mean, let me address your first question first. Yes, we do support CloudWatch. We use CloudWatch as a collector to ingest data from AWS, both metrics as well as logs. And a lot of our customers choose to export their collector data, export their CloudWatch data, I should say, into Sumo Logic, so that they can slice and dice and analyze this data, and even retain this data, for that matter, for longer periods of time. In terms of your security, second question around security management and SIM analysis, absolutely. Customers of ours do use us for security analytics, very similar to what I think Mark explained as he was going through the, as he was going through his slides here. Many customers of ours have realized that log data is very critical for them to manage the security of their applications and infrastructure. And by the very fact that Sumo Logic can ingest this log data, can analyze this log data, can provide you lots of correlation across different aspects of the log data, lends us to be a very good security analytic solution. And our customers have built dashboards and sophisticated correlation engines on top of Sumo Logic.
Great, cool. Yeah, I guess I'll just maybe one more question here then from Mark. I mean, just on that security note, I mean, it sounds like you got. I know the Scripps is using, from your description, Sumo Logic to do the event management, understanding what's going on in CloudTrail and things like that. You're also integrated with other. Is your security practice also integrating with Sumo Logic in other ways too?
So that is on my roadmap for the future. I actually want our security practice much more involved with that. We actually leverage a couple of other online services right now to do that, but we, over the past year, added a chief information security officer who's built out a new cybersecurity department for us. And I've been doing a lot of education for them on cloud because most of them don't have a cloud background, which has been pretty common for me. Surprisingly, I come to think of cloud as my primary home now, but most of the people that we find out in the wild haven't made that jump yet. So it's unusual, and I have to do a lot of education for them.
Yeah, interesting. Well, it's definitely my home too, out here in cloudy Seattle. So cool. Well, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Kelly. And I think we're sort of nearing the top of the hour. Thanks everybody for participating. If you still haven't filled out the surveys, please get them filled out. We definitely use that feedback. Looking forward to hearing more. And so expect an email from us in the next couple of days with a link to these slides and a link to the recording, so you could watch this again if you're interested. With that, I guess I'll turn it back to Jerry. Thanks very much, everybody.
This time, I'd like to thank everybody for joining in today. Thanks for attending. This time, you can disconnect from the session. Have a great day.